Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Greg, and I want to take a look at one of my recent custom action figures. This time, it's Church Assassin Brador from the video game Bloodborne, the Old Hunters DLC. Alright guys and gals, so while I have my Lady Maria figure already posted, Brador here was the first Bloodborne figure that I started. She was the first one that I finished. He took a little bit longer just because of his complicated weapon, the Bloodletter. So let's kind of take a look at him. I'm gonna take this out of his hands first, and we'll get some nice detail on the Bloodletter. Check this out. So we got a custom sculpt, and then I repurposed a accessory rod that came with another figure, and then just kind of added a bunch of bandages to it, some bloody detail. The meatball at the top is a custom sculpt with spikes on it. Let's get some detail there. Very nice and gross and gristly. And this just plugs into the top like that. For easier, makes it easier to display, you know? This is the activated version of the weapon, I guess you call it, transformed, because we know the trick weapons in the Bloodborne game. It starts off as a little scepter, maybe about this long, and then he stabs it into himself and it explodes, and there's a bunch of blood and spikes on the edge right here. And I do remember this being a dirty weapon in the PvP. A lot of people would run at you with this thing, and that was before I had got to him in the DLC, so I didn't know what it was, but this was really fun to recreate at this scale. So I'm going to set this aside and let's take a look at the figure. Brador once again making use of the DC Multiverse White Knight Joker that I like underneath. So I'm going to reset him to a neutral position. I did make his hood with the horns attached removable, which kind of makes it easier to pose. Let's make him stand up nice and tall. Get a good look at the details, all the clothes, and of course the fur. He's wearing basically what I feel like the player is wearing at the beginning of the game, just like regular, you know, some sweaty clothes, right? And then he has this beast pelt on top of him. So I chose to go ahead and tailor and pattern the clothes first, weather them, muddy them up, get all the details in there, especially all the blood. So you can see he has a dress shirt with the collar, he has a red tie, and then he has his vest, pinstriping on there, pants matching the pinstripe, and some dress shoes. The shoes are from a NECA T1000 Terminator, just one of the cops, and he had just really nice dress shoes, so I made a mold and cast those. And then he has, it looked like on the character model, some intestines kind of wound around his waist into a belt, so I used some craft wire for that, and then just gave it a glossy finish. And I did use one of my existing head sculpts, and I added some beard and hair. Let's put the hood and horns back on. Kind of see him with the full silhouette. Now for the fur, I did end up using real rabbit fur because I like to use real leather. So the shop I go to, local shop here in the Southwest called Tandy Leather, they have animal pelts. So I use rabbit fur and I treated it with watered down acrylic. So while it's still wet, I just kind of pinch it and poke at it and separate it and kind of let it dry into all these tufts. That way we get this matted look, because he is wearing the hide of a cleric beast, and you know the Bloodborne beasts are all gross and kind of gristly and mangy looking. And then for the hood, I patterned a hood out of fabric, which you can see in there. And then looking at how some of the 1/6 scale people will put real hair on their figures, I used a toothpick with some glue, dabbed it on there, and then I had the cut up rabbit fur next to me, and I just kind of layered it. Let it set, pushed it down, layered it, layered it, layered it. That way I could control the pattern and direction and just kind of get it to flow how I wanted. And the horns were another challenge because I knew I wanted them to be lightweight, able to attach pretty easily. So I went and I got some craft wire and I used forming into shape with like several sections, right? Because the horns of the Bloodborne beasts look like tree bark or branches. And then I brushed it over with some Mod Podge glue and then just painted it and weathered it. But that means they are still flexible to an extent. And then just kind of threaded it through the top in there, but leaving enough room for his head. Let's take a look at his articulation underneath. Once again, I'm going to take this hood off just because it makes it easier. If you're familiar with the DC Multiverse body, I have maintained all of that articulation. shaving away a lot of the plastic in some areas has added more, and then I do add a thigh swivel underneath. So starting at the top, he's on the just that like high barbell joint, so we can get all that good motion in there. Shoulders come out. I did want to glue the fur down at specific spots on the torso. That way the arms could be as unhindered as possible. But, you know, there's still some clothing and layers of things and the fur to kind of get in the way, but that's just what we got to deal with at this scale. The upper bicep swivel, double jointed arms, and then those ball joint wrists right there. What's cool is he has gloves on, and then he has bloody wraps over them. So I made sure to put those on first, paint them and weather them, and then put the shirt on over it, so that way it layers accordingly. Torso has that McFarlane strange engineering, but we get a swivel, we get a side lean and tilt, and we get a forward crunch and a back bend. And I made sure to layer the shirt and the vest and glue it to the top part of the torso. That way it's basically free all around here, and then the pants just attached to the top of the waist. So these are a bit tighter pants to tailor more realistically, so he is hindered a little bit in that area for like a split. You can go forward 90 degrees, double jointed knees all the way. Robo would be proud right there. Kind of adjust that. The thigh swivel that I do add at the top, just a cut right there. And then the feet, lots of rotation, swivel. Pretty posable still, which was great because he's wearing, you know, some basic clothes, no armor like my knights. Lady Maria has a tighter, more complicated costume, so she lost some articulation, but I am happy to say that he can be posed in a number of ways. I knew the Bloodletter was going to be a challenge, just like a lot of the Bloodborne weapons, a lot of the Souls games weapons. But that is kind of his trademark. So I took this rod from a McFarlane figure, and then I split it at a couple parts to add this cross guard section. I added a wooden dowel to be able to sculpt the blood clotting up here, and then to leave it exposed so we could plug in this resin cast. That way, since this thing is fragile and a little bit complicated to handle, you know, you gotta kind of grasp it at the right area. Set that aside. We can pose him. I do it in these stages. Position his hands where we want them. We put Bloodletter staff in his hands. I like these soft hands on the White Knight Joker, so I could kind of wedge the weapon in there. So say we want him like that, get his hand on there. Yeah. Okay. Let's put the blood clot on. I don't know what else to call it. I'm just gonna call it the blood clot. And the hood. So he's ready for display right there. And that's pretty much Brador in a nutshell. I mean, when you run into him. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Brador, Beast-Hide Assassin. Thank you all for watching. I can't wait to do some more Bloodborne characters. I thought I would start with something easy, quote unquote, like a hunter, or basic, you know, recognizable. But Brador actually checked some boxes that I feel comfortable to move on to more advanced characters. And then making him in tandem with Lady Maria was great too. By the time I get to a regular hunter or am commissioned to do one, I have high confidence in myself for that. So a little bit of a departure from the Knights, but once again, still right up my alley. And this fur made this project worth it. So I can't wait to use that element on some upcoming characters. You can find me at my socials, which I will post in the description. Thank you all so much, and I will see you next time.